Hello folks, welcome back to another tutorial in this Call of Duty style loadout tutorial series. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to update your primary loadout and also customize your loadout in your primary section. I'm super excited because we're really close to hitting 1000 subscribers in this channel. I really appreciate everybody who has stopped and pressed that subscribe button in my channel. This helps me to develop more and more quality content just like this for all of you game developers out there. And also this motivates me to create more and more content like this as well. Once again, thank you very much for stopping by. I really appreciate your time. Let's get into the video and let's see how we can customize our loadout today. Let's take a look at how we can set up our weapon and update our loadouts based on the selection that the player makes here. First, in our weapon select box, which holds our weapon and the weapon name information, we need to be able to click this, so we need to put a button. We can't really put a button on top of this size box or on top of this border, because that wouldn't do any good. So what we want to do is first we want to right click on this border and then wrap it with the overlay. And now we want to go ahead and search for a button and then drop it onto this overlay. Select this button and then we're going to name this as weapon select underscore BTN. And also let's stretch this button horizontal and vertical and let's make its background 0. So it doesn't have any type of color to it. Select the button and then scroll down until you see on clicked. When you click on OnClicked, it's going to create that OnClicked event. Now we want to use our interface to communicate what weapon did the player click on, and also we want to be able to communicate in which loadout did the player click on the button. Now, which loadout is actually, if you go to your W loadouts, we actually have an index that tells us which loadout this belongs to. So we need to communicate this index out, as well as we need to communicate which weapon did the player select. First, let's do a communication for which custom loadout did the player select before they selected their weapon. So go back to this W loadouts, which is basically this UI here. We're already sending out a notification here where it says notify loadout scene. We're sending a notification to our loadout scene and also all the widgets that contains the BPI loadout. Now, one more thing that we want to communicate to is our blueprint component for our loadout system. We don't want to communicate directly to the blueprint component. We want to communicate with our player, and then the player will then communicate with this blueprint. We're going to go to our BPI loadout, and where we have UI loadout unclicked, we have a class. We're going to create a new input and name this weapon loadout underscore index, and this will be of type integer. Compile and save. So we're going to communicate the integer first. So back in our loadouts, we're going to now add in a new pin here, and here we're going to right click and say get player character and copy this UI loadout, paste it, and then return value will be our target. Our class would be our class coming from the actual function. The loadout index on all of these, I'm going to go ahead and add this index here, drag it and drop it here. So now we have communicated to all these 3 different components that are index of this weapon. And now we need to communicate which weapon did the player actually select. So let's go and create a new interface function. And this new function, I'm going to call it weapon select underscore on clicked. Now we're going to be doing this for our primary weapon first and then work our way to secondary and such. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new input, and this would be s weapons info, s underscore weapon info. This is where our primary information is stored. So we're going to be selecting this and then compile and save. Now back in our weapon select box, when the button gets selected, we want to get our player character and notify our player character that weapon select on clicked is pressed. Our player character will be our target, and then also this s weapons info. So effectively what we're doing is when that's any specific weapon, whether it be an LMG or SMG or whichever case it may be, When that gets selected, we're going to notify a character, hey, that weapon just got selected. And this is the weapon's information that just got selected. Now in our first person character, we're going to go ahead and implement both of these functions. First, we're going to go ahead and create a UI loadout function that's going to be implemented. And we only need the index from this function. So to do that, first we're going to go ahead and subtract 1 from this number. And then promote this to a variable and name this current underscore selected underscore loadout underscore index. And then now we're going to go ahead and implement this weapon select on clicked function. So when we go ahead and implement this, we want to now go ahead and update our BPC loadout system struct that's sitting within the BPC loadout system component with our primary weapon that just got selected. So let's create a new function to do that. So here we're going to create a new function, name this update primary weapon. This primary weapon function is going to take in a s weapon info, and this would be of type s weapon info structure as well. And now we're going to drag in our loadout struct get, and then we're going to do a get function, and then this will be a reference that we need to get. And we need an index for this get, so we're going to communicate it through our primary weapon. So we're going to go ahead and select our primary weapon and then add in an input, and this would be index, and this would be of type integer. And you can connect this index right here. Off of this get, we're going to go and say set members in loadout struct, and you can connect this execution pin here. And if you notice on the right side, you have all of the loadout struct members here unchecked. We only need to check the one that we need to work with. In this case, it'll be primary. So I'm going to go ahead and select this primary and connect this S weapon info into the primary. And back in our first person character, in this event weapon select clicked, I'm going to go ahead and drag our BPC loadout system, and then I'm going to call in our update primary weapon. Here, I'm going to go ahead and connect our execution pin, S weapons info into S weapons info, and the current selected loadout index to this current selected loadout index. Once I do this, I know the weapon is going to get updated, the struct, so we also want to visually update it. So we already created the function for visual update, which is our loadout setup. So I'm going to drag this loadout setup in here, this function, and then also this current index, I'm going to plug it into here, compile and save. And one last thing that we also want to do is to update our loadouts UI. So we want to update our picture here to the selected weapon and also the name and such. For that, first we're going to go to our BPI loadout and create a new function. This function would be UI underscore update loadout. And the first input that it's going to take is going to be the loadout struct. This would be of type the loadout struct, and this would be of type array. And we also need to indicate which index it's going to be working with. That'll be our integer, and then let's make this our loadout struct underscore index. There we go. And let's make this of type single. Compile and save. In our first person character, we're going to get all widgets of class. This would be W underscore loadouts. And we will need to call in that UI underscore update. Now, if it doesn't show up as a message, you can just go ahead and say get player character, drag off of this, and then say UI underscore update loadout, and that'll give you the message option. And you can now get rid of the player character. This found widgets array, you can connect it to the target and go ahead and connect the execution pin. And the loadout struct would be our BPC loadout system. We're going to drag this and we're going to say get loadout struct, connect this in here, and our loadout struct index would be our current selected loadout index. And next, in our W loadouts, we're going to go ahead and implement that function. So we're going to right click on this UI update, implement it. We want to create a not function, but an event to update the primary. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new custom event and name this update underscore primary details. Update primary details. And this would take two inputs. One of them will be our loadout struct, and this would be of type loadout struct. That's a type of array. And the next one would be the index, and that will be of type integer. And now we can go ahead and call this function update primary details, and then connect these two in here. Now off of our update primary details, I want to go ahead and drag this loadout struct and say get a reference. Actually, we'll get a copy. That's fine. Get a copy. Connect this index in here. Drag off of this and then break the loadout struct, and then drag off of the primary, and then again break the weapons info. And now a shortcut that you can do is to go to your event construct where we did our loadout construct, and you see where it says primary setup. We can copy this, Control and C, or you can right click and copy. Go to your event graph, back into this update primary details function, and then you can just paste it. And instead of having to break this primary weapon info, we can just go ahead and plug this primary weapon info in here, and then connect this primary details here. And this is named as primary setup 2. You can name it however you would like. Now if I go into game, press T, loadout, select my custom loadout, and now I select this AK, that'll give me the list, and then I can go ahead and let's say select an SMG. And when I click on the SMG, you notice the background, the mesh has changed. Now if I go back out, the weapon did not change. I found out what the issue was. I actually did get all widgets of class, and then I selected the loadout class. What we need to do is we need to actually do get all widgets with interface, and that would with our BPI loadout interface in our first person character. And then that would actually do the trick. So I only made that one small change here. Sorry about that. And one more thing that we need to do here is we need to go to our pause menu. And if you notice, the pause menu also have the loadout array in here. And we need to update this loadout array every time the weapon gets updated as well. So we're going to go ahead and then in the interface functions, we're going to implement this UI update loadout. And here we're going to drag the loadout array from the pause menu. We're going to do a set, and we're going to set the loadout array here. So let's go and test this out. So I go press play, press T, go to loadout, go on my custom loadout. The AK is showing very well. The background is updated well. Now when I click on the AK, you can notice that the assault rifle is the first thing that shows up. Now if I select the SMG and when I click on the SMG, you see how the SMG is changing in the background. Now if I go back, I can see the loadout has updated with the SMG instead of the AK. Now if I go back onto custom loadout 1, there's the SMG. Custom loadout 2 actually has SMG as well. And then there is your index all changed. So that's how you would change the primary weapon on your actual loadout. And now here's the thing. If you close this game and then if you reopen it, the AK is going to show up again. That's because whenever we update the loadout struct, we're not really saving the loadout struct. So all of the default loadout setup and everything will come into play as soon as you restart the game. In your case, you would create a save function, and then you would actually go into your loadout system and you need to save this updated loadout struct. As soon as the loadout struct gets updated, you would do like an event dispatcher or an interface to update and save this loadout struct in your game instance or in a save file, so that every time you restart the game, the custom loadout will always be set as such. So folks, I think this is a great stop for us today. And again, I'm very excited to coming close to this end of this tutorial series. The next couple series will be all about, changing the weapons in our pistols and also our melee, tactical, frag. Everything follows the exact same structure as what we did in our primary weapon. And the last couple sections will be about doing the perks and also the widgets on top of the bags and such. This is what we'll be doing before we close off this entire tutorial series. Once again, folks, thank you very much for showing up this far in this video tutorial series. We're really close on 1,000 subscribers, and I would really appreciate it if you could take 1 second to hit that subscribe button. It's free. It's no charge to you. This allows me to create more and more content for developers like you and also to reach out to more and more developers who are in need. Thank you very much again for coming this far, and I'll catch you on the next one.